Our next speaker is Niran Shrestha. I hope I said that correctly. Niran is going to demonstrate how Kwant solutions, from workforce management to material tracking to 5D BIM to predictive analysis, create efficiencies and better business practices while also creating significant ROI. So here with his presentation entitled From General Motors to Delta Airlines, Construction Sites Made Safer and More Productive Using Smart Badges is Niran Shrestha. Did I say that correctly?
Yes. Hi, good morning, everybody. Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Niran, the CEO and co-founder of Kwant.ai. So we're here to explain about how we're leveraging LoRaWAN technology in some of the largest construction sites that we've been working on, from working in LaGuardia Airport for their Delta's $2 billion project to working on General Motors and several other EV factories using our smart badges and predictive analytics solution. So as a brief background, my background is in civil engineering, architecture, data science. I work with multiple large-scale engineering companies, including WSP. And we built this company about 5 years ago to help construction companies and industrial companies to improve their safety and performance. So we work with some of the largest builders around the country, and you can see some of the projects that we work here, from data centers to high-rise buildings, to roads, to factories. We work with buildings all around the United States and the world. So that road project is in Brazil, and we work in Mexico as well as in Canada. So you can see how we've leveraged LoRaWAN around the world. So these are some of the footprints that we have right now. All around we deployed about 162,000 smart badges. And we work with about 200,000 workforce to make sure that they're going home safely at the end of the day to their families, and making sure that their workforce is as safe and productive as it can be, right? So let's start with why we chose LoRaWAN. So my background is in civil engineering and data science. The reason we chose LoRaWAN was because the industry was actually looking for a solution that did not require to have power and energy at every place. Like in factories, you could probably have a power outlet around the building, but on a construction job site, which is starting to just be built, having a power is like impossible, right? And the second point was the construction job sites also don't have Wi-Fi network. Like in a smart building or in a factory environment, you could have a Wi-Fi network that can connect the data back to the server, but on a construction job sites, which are just starting to be built, that lack of power as well as the lack of the network connectivity was the two biggest challenges that we faced when we actually started to try to solve this problem. Then my CTO came from his previous experience at Cisco, and then we worked together to build this technology together, and we now work with Tectelic as well as Abiway to help us leverage their network as well as their gateways to the market right now. So this is an example, because of, this is examples of how we do the installation of the gateway, just to show you the idea. And the third reason was also why we went with LoRa was because with other technologies like just basic Bluetooth or UWB, the cost of installation and the upgrade was such a high that they couldn't keep up with it. With using LoRa, we were able to leverage that easy plug-and-play solution, 1 or 2 gateways on the job site, and then cover the entire field. We actually started with using 8-channel gateway, but now we're using 8-channel everywhere, 16-channel everywhere. So we're backed up by solar power on every place, so that we don't even have to have power or in even one place. So then comes the second piece, which is the wearable piece, right? So on the wearable side, we have a smart badge. We have our own smart badge. We also use smart badges from partners like Abiway. And these smart badges or the hard hat tags are There are two kinds of technology. I'll talk about that in a bit. It works as an ID card. So the worker who must have an ID card is just wearing an ID card, or who must have had a hard hat tag just is wearing a normal hard hat tag. But now we've just actually collect much more data point from those smart badges or hard hat tags. It works as a PPE. So these devices have fall detection, SOS button. It can also catch near misses. Previously, the presenter was talking about how insurance and risk management has become a big factor in making some of the decisions. Catching the near misses is a big part of our solution right now, where in New York City, where we're based out of, if you're building 40, 50-story building, the risk of falling down, the risk of having an accident is so high, and we want to prevent those accidents by catching them even before that, or restricting people from going to high-risk zones, where there is a fall could happen. So preventing those accidents is a big part of our solution here right now. And all these other, just to elaborate more on how the battery life plays a significant role, because LoRa was has such a long battery life. Because with other devices, the requirement to charge would have been so high that the construction workers would have never done that. But with LoRa, these devices, we've actually been able to increase make it so easy that they don't need to charge it for at least 90 days with the GPS, or without GPS for about 3 years. So the technology works. There's a smart wearable, right, and either a hard hat tag or a badge. And then there's a bridge device that, for indoor localization or for temperature humidity, there's a bridge device. That's our proprietary device. And that data is then sent to the cloud. And then all the insights are generated from there. So there's two ways the technology works. The first one was how there is a Bluetooth device that connects with the LoRa bridge. In the second one, we're talking about the LoRa BLE is a wearable, and that connects with the BLE devices to then create a localization. So depending on different circumstances, we use either of those. So I'm here to talk about just how we solve a problem in the industry that employs about 10 million workers in the industry. And in this new $1 trillion infrastructure build, the number of construction projects like GM, Ford, airports, data centers is just going to increase. And the number of workers that are needed to support this industry is only going to increase. But as you all know, there is a shortage of workforce. Right? So the problem we're trying to solve is the problem of just building better infrastructure, building better roads, building better houses for our communities, but with optimal workforce. Now, the power of LoRa is the fact that we collect the real-time data that was previously not possible, now leveraging that data to then make decisions on safety and productivity. So let's take an example of LaGuardia Airport. So because of multiple reasons, I probably cannot talk too much about what happened here in the project, but this was a $2 billion project. Every time you go to LaGuardia, you can see the Delta's new airport, which is very, very nice. And one of the primary use case for them was that they were going to get delayed. They were going to get delayed because of the several, lack of workforce, or they're trying to meet there are different change orders and schedule changes that were happening on a job site. So, and for an airport to open on time is high pressure from all different directions, from the monetary perspective as well as from the public perspective. Opening the airport is a very high requirement for them. So we were brought in about 1/3 of the project. And we were basically able to leverage the solution to make sure that we were able to understand how the workforce is being managed, improve site access. So this is such a large area of a job site that, how many workers, there used to be about 2,000 workers on a project. And to understand how many workers are there down to the decimals, it was very hard for them. So we were able to give that data to them. So you can see the heat map of the workforce, how we create the heat map, indoor as well as outdoor heat map of the workforce, to restrict workers from entering, let's say, a live runway or to workers from entering zones that they are restricted from entering when there is an actively operating airport that is being built next to it. Also collecting, understanding the data about the time spent by each company or the workforce. So by default, we actually anonymize the data of who the worker is. Because this is a union project, we did have to go through union legislation and the union leaders to make sure that we respect their privacy. And after several meetings, we were able to convince them. So also collecting hourly data to make sure that the workforce, their payroll and their wage compliance is met and the reporting is done to the Port Authority as well. So they're using our data just to validate. This is not the only data point. They have other 4 or 5 data points about payroll, but our data was also being used to make sure that the timesheets are correct. And then using that data to understand prediction of the workforce delays, like if you're which part of the project is gonna get delayed, are we able to open this wing early on time, or is it gonna get delayed, and being proactive about those delays to make sure that there are enough workers in each areas. Now let's talk about the General Motors. So, with all these EV factories that are being built around coming up right now, General Motors was just starting to build their EV factory at the COVID time. And then this was a pretty big initiative that came in where they had to understand the risk of each worker on a job site and operate the building during COVID as well. Construct the building during COVID, actually. So 2 use cases, primarily on safety, COVID contract tracing, as well as safety of the workers. When you're putting about 4,000 workers in one single, massive industrial facility, there's bound to have high risk because people are, swinging hammers, people are moving around forklifts around, and the higher the number of workforce that is in a zone, the higher the amount of hours that are being spent, the risk actually goes up, right? So we were brought in to understand the risk of both, and to make sure that there is a work continuity during COVID. So in this particular project, I just need to go into details. This is in Detroit. We work with 3 other facilities with General Motors right now, and we installed 3 gateways and about 4,000 smart badges that were deployed in this particular project. So we talk about some of the near misses and the safety alerts here, which is we categorize our safety into 2 things, right? One is being proactive. So trying to prevent those accidents before it happens, right? Because once the accident happens, you cannot do much with it. So being able to detect if a worker is too close to a forklift. So there is a wearable as well as a sensor that is installed on the forklift or a moving equipment. And if the worker and the equipment is coming too close to each other, then either the sound goes off or the badge starts vibrating, basically. On the other hand, restricting high-risk zones, so understanding if worker is moving too close to a live area or too close to a flying steel. The other one that we currently use our AI capabilities are on understanding if the worker's movement has some anomaly. So the accelerometers on these smart badges are able to detect, if a worker is moving with some, that is not a normal movement, or is jumping from 3 feet and above. We can, look at OSHA rules and understand what is the minimum threshold to have a ladder versus, he can jump off, So by understanding those, we can actually understand the behavior of the workforce and then proactively alert him about, look, you seems like, you need to actually take care of some of the safety rules here. So that's more on the proactive side. If there is an incident that happens, then there is the SOS button, right? So you can press the button to call for help, or there's the fall detection, right? So the fall detection is also where we use some of our algorithm to have more accuracy on the fall, because the falling of a person versus falling of a badge or a falling of a wearable can, we had to do a lot of deep learning to actually understand, to differentiate those things. So right now, I think we're about 95% on there, where we're able to detect when a person falls versus just somebody threw their badge on the floor, basically. And that alert is then sent to the safety manager or whoever is responsible for that and go and rescue and help him as fast as possible. I have several stories of these incidents happening on multiple job sites where we've been able to actually help and rescue somebody's workforce. Yeah, so this is the other one where we're leveraging these smart wearables to then understand who's operating a vehicle and if the worker is actually supposed to be so unauthorized moving in equipment, sending an alert, right? So both the workforce and the equipment has a sensor on it. And if somebody unauthorized without a certificate to operate a forklift tries to manage the forklift, then it sends an alert to the management saying that some unauthorized movement has happened here. In this particular project, we actually used Abiway's smart tracking sensors and leveraged our smart wearables to connect with it. This is on the side of near misses, where if you're seeing a workforce is too close to a moving equipment, that sends out an alert. It also, even before that sending an alert, we can start tracking how far the distance between the worker and the equipment was. So we can start understanding the data to actually then predict, is there a potential risk here, right? So all this data, right, is being collected to make decisions on performance. And we're also working with a couple of insurance companies to help, manage the risk and eventually provide a better underwriting processes to these construction companies or the owners. So overall, we are working with several these large-scale general contracts from General Motors to Delta to Ford and data centers, where people are now using our data to then not just make a decision on one project, but overall portfolio of what's happening. So let's say GM has multiple factories right now they're being built. If there is one area that have a lower workforce, then they can move those workforce from one side to the other side. And this is very important right now during we hear the news about lack of workforce or labor shortage in the market. Similarly, using the data from the trackers to then optimize your equipments. Though this is just an upcoming project for us to understand, how the shipments are moving from, in a large-scale project, shipments are moving from one side of the job site to the other side. Being able to track, fleets, inventory. We can also track materials and equipments with this as well, and optimize rental. So we are, working with several rental facilities. We rent out forklifts and different equipments, and how much is this being used right now to optimize the rental cost. So these are some of our partners that we work with in our ecosystem of LoRaWAN. Abiway and Axility is our biggest partner. MachineQ as well we also work with MachineQ. And then Helium is for our integration for the large-scale deployments, where the local LoRaWAN gateways are not required, and Esri for the mapping system as well. Then on the construction vertical, our integration is with Procore, Power BI, Microsoft, and Autodesk. So as you can see, previously the job sites used to be they don't know how many workers are there, they don't know where the material is, they don't know if there is going to be a safety incident or not, or where the equipments are being used. And still, I know several large-scale construction projects. I know of one of the largest construction projects we just deployed today. They were still using paper to count 6,000 workers. And it was and the amount of ROI can we provide on this multi-billion-dollar project by just increasing their efficiency by less than 1%. Could mean a significant change on their business operations, So even our ROI, I can talk about it in a bit, is about 11% increase in productivity, but a significant for up to 1% on these billion-dollar projects could mean so much savings. So lastly, talking about privacy, because the privacy issue always comes up as in how are you collecting all this data from the workforce, and how do you work with the unions, right? So we always work on the data that is that the customer wants to collect. If they don't want to collect certain data such as names or even their phone numbers, it's on their terms what they want to collect, right? And we anonymize the name by default so that, at least at the safety level, the people might want to know the name, but by default, the names are hidden actually. And the third one is where the LoRa basically also has a big leverage, is that it's localized, right? So we compete with maybe a phone, just doing some of these things just using a phone or cellular connectivity, right? But LoRa is localized, so we always tell our customers that, look, this is only within this radius, and it's not going to do anything. As soon as you go out of this area, you don't need to then collect any of that. We don't collect any data, basically. At the back end, we're encrypting all the data so that, and then we have regular security upgrades, and we're SOC 2 compliant, basically. So to conclude, why LoRaWAN and why Kwant is able to help these workforce that are building our societies and buildings. Just by understanding how many workers are there on a job site and making sure that daily reports are done, we've been able to save them thousands of hours, especially in large scale. Our focus is in large scale. If there are 20 workers, obviously you can see 20 workers working, right? But on a large scale projects, we really help them to understand how many workers are there for their reporting, for compliance, and all that. And then safety. Safety is a pretty big one, and just on the fines that we have in New York City right now, not having a proper certification to work on a job site, that's $15,000 of fine that's made. But on each incident costs about $37,000, right? Based on some of the stats, 6 workers die in the United States every day in construction industry. So being able to reduce that by even 1, will be a big ROI for the industry. And then understanding if the work is going on time, if the work is going to get completed, and then finally predicting delays and making sure that these hospitals, airports, and these factories are opening on time, and we're able to be productive. So that is it. I'm glad that I'm able to share this with you. I'll be around hanging out at Abby Way's booth over there, just to show some live demos, and I can take more questions over there.